And we're finally back with some more Reggie. I believe this campaign that he does with Grom is unmodded, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. I don't think I've ever seen anybody play through Grom's campaign yet. I did see Mandalore's review on the campaign and stuff like that, but knowing Reggie, this is gonna be absolutely insane. The link to the OG video will be at the top of the description as always. Please make sure to go and support Reggie. Leave a like and subscribe to him.
The gameplay of Warhammer 3 is an obvious allegory for America and its obesity crisis. You start as one of 437 different races and immediately begin killing everyone that looks even remotely different than you. Why? Because unless you're some kind of clown-shoed idiot, your short and long-term goal is world domination. You can play as the humble—
Yeah, I mean, yeah, true. To be fair, in a world like Warhammer Fantasy, discrimination isn't exactly the biggest thing on people's minds.
Humans, they're great if you have a low moral barometer and a sexual attraction to artillery pieces.
Oh, God.
But maybe you'd rather be an anemic
Hellfire
sex
rockets.
criminal instead. The dwarves have you covered. And if all else fails, you can always play as a colony of Twitter users. Fascinating creatures. In reality, it doesn't matter which faction you choose, because much like a cocaine-infused stockbroker, you will inevitably develop an unhealthy relationship with watching numbers go up. Your borders can always be bigger, your income always higher, and of course, you can always accumulate more mass. In a world where
Dude, I completely understand that. It's just one more turn, you know? The one more turn is one thing, but also, like, your economy has to grow. Your borders have to grow. Your armies have to grow. It's just constant expansion non-stop. Is there a way to play the game diplomatically? I feel like the game isn't designed for that. And the diplomacy system has been expanded upon in the third game. But like, would that be possible? At the very least, you'd have to go to war to capture some settlements to then trade to other people to then make them your military allies to kind of pseudo expand your own borders there through some sort of diplomatic means. So yeah, no, I don't think it would be possible to beat the game just through diplomacy.
there is a 1-to-1 correlation between your charge damage and your BMI, suddenly being morbidly obese has become the greatest superpower of all. And when it comes to being immensely fat, no one does it better than Grom the Paunch. This heaving green mass of cholesterol
goblin
is not only sentient, but he's one of the strongest units in the game. Men want to be him, women want to be with him, and today, I am him. Immediately upon loading, it became clear that I have entered my own personal hell because I am surrounded on all sides by the French. Jesus Christ.
Dude, his starting position is, it's not too great. You're just surrounded by enemies, aren't you? And I mean, your starting city is a little difficult to attack. Gives you some time, but Grom usually dies whenever I play a campaign. It's just too much.
Even the vampires are French. I solved this conundrum through careful diplomacy, and by careful diplomacy, I mean I had an obese man drive over their heads in a chariot. With our first enemy fended off, we can now participate in the real gameplay, creating strange and elaborate mukbangs to help Grom on his personal mission to tantalize the Vor community. As you can see here, Grom is...
Of course, that community exists on Reddit. But one of the things that I found like super engaging with Grom's campaign from the review from Mandalore that I saw was, yeah, this mechanic. The fact that every single time you can give your armies like a different buff makes the replayability of this campaign pretty insane. Work around different strategies, build your armies differently, depending on the ingredients that you get, of course. Yeah, it just seems like a lot of fun.
Starving, obviously, and we're going to need to make him some food.
Obviously.
To do this, we need to acquire several...
Oh my god, I just saw it for a split second, Sendigor milk. Oh boy.
Obscure ingredients from around the world, which will almost certainly necessitate the eradication of countless civilizations, but their sacrifice is one I am willing to make. Our goal is to create and consume all foods, at which point our purpose in life will be complete, and Grom can die peacefully from a convulsion-inducing heart attack. For now, the easiest way to collect ingredients is to just kill everyone we meet and sort out the tasty parts later. To accomplish this, I have launched a brave and courageous eugenics program, whereby whenever a French army spawns, I kill it immediately. My fringe scientific beliefs eventually led me to Bordelot, where we were ambushed by a large quantity of Frenchmen.
Oh my God.
In such moments, the game will try to gaslight you into believing you're at risk of losing. Allow me to show you why this is literally impossible. As greenskins, you have a wide selection of characters, buttons, and settings, but only one of them is actually worth pressing, because when your total lack of brain activity inevitably causes you to start losing a battle, I want you to slam your forehead through the emergency glass and press this button. The WA button instantly buffs your entire army and heals it for 50% of its health. With such immense power, we can effectively neglect any tactical decision making and instead focus on meaningful gameplay decisions, such as using a homeless lady to vomit on unsuspecting peasants. Following
But yeah, the WA ability as well as the WA mechanic is just so... It can really swing the power ranking of any green skin faction. Of course, I'm pretty sure that there's a massive drawback if a WA fails, and I don't know if this isn't like an actual, the mechanic that I'm talking about. This might just be like an army ability that you can pop whenever. But I mean, it makes sense for the greenskins, and I would be very terrified to be on the receiving end of that. Especially with a bunch of peasants playing as Bretonia.
In this, we were given a quest by a decapitated head, which my psychiatrist assures me is not normal. Regardless, after completing...
I remember the lore about this, pretty sure it was from Mandalor's video as well. That yeah, it actually is a decapitated head of his previous advisor, just there to give you like missions and stuff. That's pretty funny.
Said quest, we were awarded with a stone golem, which is definitely not overpowered to have on turn 4. After that, we invade...
Dude, I thought getting like Hell Pit Abominations on like what, turn 15, turn 20 was pretty OP. Getting that on turn 4, oh my god. The animations for the giant golem there is actually really cool too. I remember commenting about it.
Castle Bordelot and successfully renovated it into a heaping pile of shit. Understandably upset by this, our French enemies launched one final assault on us, armed with Odo and 39 people he found at the bus stop. This was a poor decision on their part. The rapid expansion of our empire had regrettably drawn the attention of the Greater Francophone hive mind, which caused the Fey Enchantress to declare war on us. She attacked us with an army of mounted knights. However, we have the perfect and most dangerous counter to cavalry, a 15-degree incline. The very concept of a non-uniform Earth caused her cavalry to absolutely lose their minds and enter a profound state of psychosis. In response, I did the only humane thing possible, which was to complete an industrial amount of mercy killings. With the Fey
Yeah, never charge uphill. It's not good unless if you like have a massive advantage. I suppose in these instances, it really depends on the map that you're fighting on. If you're downhill from your enemy and they have a bunch of cavalry, then probably don't fight it.
Enchantress now defeated, it is time to break several international treaties by ingesting our enemies.
Eating them.
It's around this time people you don't know will start paying you extortion money you didn't ask for. By this point, our reputation had increased enough to allow us to press the only other button that matters in the game, Call to Wa. By pressing this, we can designate a city to destroy and double the size of all of our armies for... Double the size of all of our armies for 20 turns.
Double the size of all of your armies for 20 turns? So you're saying that you can field 40 units in one army? Does that come with added upkeep cost? Or is that just literally free? Just press a button and you get 20 more units.
Turns. If Grom was a car, this would be the equivalent of not only uninstalling his brakes, but replacing them with another acceleration pedal. I chose Castle Carcassonne as our target and plowed Grom into it at 300 miles per hour. Needless to say, there were no survivors. This was the last of our enemies' territories, which effectively rendered them homeless. And in this game, much like in real life, for every turn you are homeless, you slowly but noticeably decompose a little more. But
yeah, it takes massive amounts of attrition. But I wonder if I ever learned about the wall mechanic. It's been a while since I watched Mandalor's reviews of the game, but as a player, being able to utilize that, you could absolutely crush people like that. I still have yet to play the Greenskin, so my only experience with them was fighting against them, and I usually avoid, you know, angering Warzag if his WOG was currently going. Those armies were just not easy to defeat, for sure. But imagining this in my hands. The chaos we could create. Absolutely destroy some people.
Grom does not care, because I just realized the Wood Elves have invaded Paravent, and little did they know I had already developed a parasocial relationship with that exact settlement, and their invasion of it unofficially and then officially meant war. With our army still chubbed up from our favorite button, I decided to invade the Wood Elf territories. Fighting the Wood Elves is a lot like fighting the Viet Cong. You are going to be shot by people you can't see, develop a rational fear of trees, and then experience PTSD for the rest of your life. It's a dirty job, but someone has to do it, because they're dangerous. I mean, would you really trust your kids around this man?
And a tree, my Gumo is shocking my car.
I didn't think so.
What?
We marched right into their...
What is that audio clip from? What? Orion can be kind of a pain in the ass to deal with, I'll be honest with you. That man does a lot of damage, especially early game. And the fact that you take so much attrition in the magical forest too, as basically any other faction apart from the Wood Elves. Yeah, that sucks. It's not a war that I want to deal with. But, if you start near him, you're gonna have to,
capital and began our siege. I deployed my army in no particular order, but still managed to crush the Wood Elves under the weight of 8,000 goblin spearmen. Oh, and we also did this to them. They really didn't like that. I would occupy the settlement, but it's just so goddamn disgusting I decided to leave and never come back. By this point, we collected 8 ingredients. A good start, but we still have a lot of work to do. Fortunately, a food merchant appeared on the map to help us out. There's a couple of ways to interact with the food merchant. For example, we can buy ingredients from her, rob her for money, or cook food for her in exchange for upgrades to our cauldron. I chose the last option. However, the food merchant speaks exclusively in some kind of goblin ebonics, which makes it just about impossible to decipher what the fuck she is actually saying. But we can deal with that later. We have more important things to tend to. A man we don't know explained he wants to kill us. Ikid is still paying us money to leave him alone. And the most French man to have ever lived declared war on us.
Of course he is. I mean, you went to war with the other guys. I don't think this is really a favorable fight for Grom, because Lewin usually just destroys him whenever I play, but let's see how Reggie handles this one.
Time you will realize playing Grom the Paunch is effectively an exercise in resistance. The rest of the world is staging a violent intervention to prevent us from eating ourselves into a diabetic coma, and we must resist. To this effect, I hired a new commander, Gorebirds, and gave him an army. I put Gorebirds in charge of the neighborhood watch, which meant that roughly once every 5 turns he would see Orion and subsequently beat him to death for trying to leave the enchanted forest. This worked very well, and it allowed Grom to plow northward, eventually defeating Luan in a series of battles that could only be described as unethical. By this point, we had effectively converted the French countryside into something vaguely resembling Canada, but there's still one issue: Quebec. I declared war on the undead and began ransacking their armies. I'd like to say it is very difficult to kill a ghost with a catapult, but not impossible. With most of Bretonnia now thoroughly under our control, I decided to do 2 very important things. First, I researched a revolutionary artillery platform that allows me to dress my goblins up like cute little trick-or-treaters. Look at him. He thinks
he's so happy. He's gonna go diving straight into the enemy and die. Well, I guess that's one use for a goblin. Oh man, some of these weapons in Warhammer are just so over the top, but like it fits.
He's a bat, but don't get too attached, and definitely don't name them, because they have pledged fealty to the Empire of the Rising Sun, and the next thing we're doing is launching them from a catapult as kamikaze dive bombers, because after all, why bother buying explosives when you can be the explosive? Apart from this, I sent one of my armies out to explore the wonderful and enchanting ocean in search of delicious aquatic ingredients, and they were killed immediately by Somali pirates. This didn't upset me as much as it caused me to fly into a blind rage and immediately begin building the most immoral army possible in an effort to punish the world for my misfortune. 11 snotling pump wagons and 8 trebuchets. Don't mind if I do. To be clear, I don't even want to play this army, because microing 11 cavalry units requires a level of attention that I am simply not capable of. You see, my brain is powered by a single Nigerian man running on a hamster wheel, and I fear that managing this army may in fact result in his death, but we'll...
Why is... Okay, I'm not gonna even go. It's just Reggie things. I feel like if you ever do play an army with chariot units, you get like 1 or 2 of them. Like, having an entire army of them is just way too much to manage. Even if, like, someday I were to play Cetra, which will probably definitely happen at some point, I very likely would not go for, like, a full-on chariots, despite that being, you know, his thing. I'm really glad that you can, at the very least, like, play it in slow motion or even pause the game though. So that could make it possible, but yeah, it's just too much.
Never be able to achieve our dream of congestive heart failure if we aren't willing to make a few sacrifices, so let's continue. With our French enemies now lying in various stages of decomposition, I took a few turns to figure out our place in the world, which is apparently 22nd. That's right, we're not even on the podium, but we can fix that with one simple trick. Another call to Wa. By literally doubling our standing military, we've gone from rank 22 to rank 3. This is troubling because it means there are two.
As I said, you know, the strength rank swings are just insane whenever they start a WA.
Other factions that are more than twice as powerful as us. Regardless, I can't risk our food quest being jeopardized by a larger faction, so we have to become the larger faction, which means that some people need to die. If you recall, about 20 turns ago, the dwarves body-shamed Grom pretty viciously, and that shit doesn't fly around here, so we're going to go stab them to death with spears. I declared their capital city as the target of our Wa and began assembling my armies. I decided it might be beneficial to have a path into the Dwarven Mountains, and the only one available was through the Wood Elves, so I opted to kill Orion and take his fancy little treehouse. Unfortunately, this caused Findal to become scared and he declared war on us, so we killed him, which resulted in Dave becoming frightened and declaring war on us, next. So we killed him too. But then Durthu got upset, so we had to kill him, which caused both Ellen and Eltharion to get upset, but unfortunately we haven't researched intercontinental ballistic missiles, so we'll kill them later. By the end of it, I had personally...
What? Okay, that has to be edited.
They slaughtered 10,079 people just to get to the dwarves. If I was a dwarf, I would be mildly concerned by that statistic. Helman Gorst certainly was, because he attempted to befriend me by donating 300 gold. Obviously, I accepted and then declared war on him immediately after.
What?
It's not personal, Helman. I just really need a test.
Bro, Reggie, but what about your reliability? Isn't like completely tanking your reliability by doing something like that just like a game ender? Although now that I think about it, there were times when I was playing a Claw's campaign and my reliability went down. But over time it can recover, and I mean, as long as you're actually strong enough, you can defend yourself. Yeah, I don't know.
Subject for the meme team. So I invaded his settlement. Honestly, the army is beautiful in a Francisco Goya kind of way. 11 squadrons of deranged mushroom enthusiasts being supported by 24 catapults. It's all I've ever wanted. The game plan is to entangle the pump wagons with the enemy forces and cause a large-scale traffic jam in the middle of the map. Once that has been accomplished, the pump wagons will call in an artillery strike on their own position, thus obliterating everything in the process. Needless to say, this was very entertaining to witness. This is such a fucking
I can imagine.
Army. And after 15 minutes of bulldozing zombies and pelting them with mini fridge-sized rocks, we had managed to kill 1,812 enemies. They had managed to kill 34, seemingly not at all demoralized by losing a battle with a casualty ratio of 53 to 1. Hellman kept attacking us. You'd think his original defeat would have taught him a lesson, but some people, they have to learn the same lesson over and over and over. Eventually, we managed to send Hellman to the retirement home in the sky when Grom broke every bone in his body by hitting him with a car. That was a fun distraction. Now, back to the dwarves. With direct access to the Dwarven Mountains, I was able to send Gorebirds to Karak Izor and Karak Bufdar to claim them for my food empire. I even managed to find a new ingredient in the process. The main Dwarven army was actually located to...
Oh, stunty dwarves. Okay, yeah. That makes sense.
The south at Maragliano, where they were busy harassing my Skaven submissive.
What the? Veligars and Maragliano? What's going on here? What happened to Sartosa? Why is Akeclaw not doing anything? What is going on?
I sent Gorebirds down there to sort things out. Their army actually looked a little intimidating because they have Apache attack helicopters, but unfortunately for them, we have people who are willing to destroy their helicopters by launching themselves headfirst into the propellers.
Oh my god, you could actually do... Oh, well, I mean, the accuracy of that would probably be pretty low. But that was insane, dude. That goblin's a hero. Died a hero just to bring down one gyrocopter from the dwarves. I think that's what they're called, right? But I feel like for the most part, Belgar's army, the scariest thing in his army is definitely the ancestors. They have some pretty insane spells and extremely high resistances, and I think they also cause terror as well. I don't know how susceptible the greenskin units are to like routing from terror, or I guess like leadership debuffs. Maybe the leadership isn't all too high. I can kind of imagine that for the greenskins. They're kind of there to, you know, fight. But that doesn't mean that they're willing to throw their lives away immediately. They want to fight and win.
After a little more careful diplomacy, we managed to defeat the dwarf army. The loss of 90% of their military and 3 of their largest cities caused them to drop from strength rank 15 to rank 103, and we went all the way up to rank 2. Very cool. While this was going on, I stumbled across another food merchant with a substantially less cryptic food request. She wants a pie. I can do that. The only issue is we don't really have any conventional pie ingredients, so we're going to have to push the theoretical boundaries on what exactly it means to be a pie. For example, is a severed foot submerged in a vial of semen a pie? Apparently it is, and she loved it. With that, we have now unlocked a new ingredient slot, which will allow us to make more potent food going forward. For example, we can combine monster goo with troll meat and phoenix claws to produce the following. Grom gets 100 weapon damage and sundering attacks. Our goblins get a regeneration ability as well as flaming arrows, and our trolls get sexually transmitted diseases. That's pretty good. Now with 12 foods, I think it's time to conduct our ingredient hunt in a more deliberate manner. Each of the 13 remaining food items actually tells us how to get them. For example, to unlock harpy heads, we have to sack a dark elf settlement. That doesn't sound too hard, until you realize the closest dark elf settlement is across the fucking ocean. So at this point, the game turns into a scavenger hunt, but with substantially more violence. I figured the best approach to this would be to divide and conquer, so I've elected 3 generals to lead the expedition to the grocery store that is this world. First, we have Rachnic Spiderclaw. He's a unique lord that provides special buffs to spider-based units in his army. So I equipped him with a highly diverse army of goblins, goblins riding spiders, and goblins riding really big spiders that can also summon additional smaller spiders. Next, we have Gorebirds. I've specialized him into providing buffs for trolls and giants, so his army is composed mostly of totally normal and socially well-adjusted individuals. Then we have Oglock the Orrible, who is specialized in the use of weaponized pigs. Between these 3 geniuses, I feel very confident in our chances of tracking down the final ingredients. But first, I need to steal 30 seconds of your time to coerce you into developing a caffeine addiction. I've recently struck up a partnership with GamerSupps, which is a company that sells delicious energy supplements and 100% socially acceptable receptacles to put them in. In fact, just last week, I went to an ultra-orthodox bar mitzvah with a shaker cup full of titty milk. Everyone there was clearly jealous because they couldn't stop asking me questions such as, who are you, and how did you get in here? This level of popularity could be yours if only you are brave enough to wield a waifu cup to your next family gathering. If this interests you, I encourage you to visit the link on screen or in the pinned comment and use code Reggie for 10% off. Thank you, GamerSupps. Now let's get back to the video. While I was recruiting the units for my new army, I decided to start the scavenger hunt with Grom and Gorebirds. The first and easiest ingredient to find was goldfish. All I had to do was sack an Empire settlement. No problem. In fact, the Empire is really struggling this game. Somehow they've become loosely subjugated by Vlad von Karstein, who is strength rank 4. This presented me with a unique dilemma. Our previous was have...
Although, to be honest, in my campaigns, Carl kind of like gets his shit together and reunites the Empire, and usually he's pretty strong.
Have been successful, and they awarded me with a big trophy, but not the biggest trophy. Humies. That could only be attained by defeating a top 10 enemy, such as Vlad von Karstein. I didn't...
Oh, interesting. So it depends on their strength rank. I mean, that makes sense for the greenskins.
Need to declare war on him, but in a much more real way. I really wanted to. So in an act of wanton gluttony, I created a new WA targeting Vlad's capital city, and over the next 20 turns, Grom and Gorebirds carved their way through the undead region. Vlad himself was an unkillable monstrosity who could best be described as a bipedal euthanasia factory. Fortunately for us, he suffers from a crippling degree of separation anxiety, and if you kill all of his friends, he will literally disintegrate. Once we worked out that critical flaw, Grom was able to fight his way to Castle Drakenhof, which he claimed...
Yeah, Vlad is just nigh impossible to kill on his own. And I mean, even if you do, he just comes back. He's resilient, I'll give him that. I wonder what playing as Vlad would feel like, actually. Oh, dude, there's just so many factions in the game that I want to play and experience. Not enough time.
Through the use of really big ladders and lots of violence. By this point, the war had geographically bisected the undead faction. As you can imagine, this was not good for the economy. In fact, the only units Vlad could afford to recruit were level 1 zombies. That being said, he could afford a lot of level 1 zombies.
Oh, here they
I know
come.
this because the next thing he did was attack me with 5,017 of them. I would spend 20 minutes slowly chopping my way through thousands of undead, only to be greeted by enemy reinforcements have arrived, and the sight of thousands more on the horizon. There's something vaguely traumatic about fighting an enemy that, despite being flattened, perforated, and impaled, just keeps on coming. The only good thing about having the—
I mean, at the very least, thank goodness this isn't Helmengorst. If it was Helmengorst, we'd actually be in trouble.
Kill 5,000 people is that once you're done, apparently you get $17,000. Anyway, with this victory, the vampires were relegated to geopolitical obscurity, and I can now sleep at night because I have the biggest trophy. By this point, my recruiting was complete, so I decided to send Rachnik and Oglok to the far corners of the map to collect a few ingredients. Oglok would go to the jungles of the southeast to find lizard legs, winged leather, and centaur milk. Rachnik, on the other hand, would be exploring the ocean in search of hard-shell crab, pufferfish, and harpy heads. Rachnik sailed successfully across the ocean, eventually arriving in Lustria, where we sacked a pirate settlement to receive hard-shell crab. I attempted to kill Luther Harkon for additional ingredients, but quickly realized that an army of funny green men on spiders was no match for an army of cannons. 5 turns later, Rachnik had been resurrected, and now with a slightly more responsible build, we sailed up the coast to the Dark Elves and absolutely obliterated one of their settlements to gain harpy heads. I thought it would be kind of awkward to try and explain that I burnt their city to the ground for some sandwich meat, so instead, I pretended to be a warmongering maniac. After defeating one of their armies...
Friggin' Gandhi. The memes will never die because Gandhi... because of the programming error with Gandhi.
We also acquired Dragon Tail. This is objectively the best ingredient if you are not just trying to defeat your enemies, but also psychologically destroy them, because Dragon Tail makes all of your goblins fire explosive ammunition. Of course, this is perfectly balanced and not at all unfair when you have 12 stacks of archers.
Dude, that's right, I heard about that in Mandalor's video. Explosive arrows on everybody? Have an entire army full of them? As long as you don't get ambushed and you have like an open field to shoot your enemies before they approach you, they are not getting to the front line. That sounds like a lot of fun. That's pretty much the equivalent of like an Ikeclaw weapon team's army. Although I'd be curious to know what the power comparison between those two would be.
Apart from this, we also found the Sword of Cain. Apparently it's an immensely powerful weapon that slowly drives its wielder insane. So obviously, I had to have it. Following this, Rachnik returned to the Maelstrom to exact his revenge upon the pirates. After a little bit of this, and a lot of that, he had his last ingredient, pufferfish. While this was going on, I stumbled upon a hilariously awful dwarf army composed entirely of rock miners. I thought it would be kind of ironic to kill them with rocks. So I did. Say whatever you want about me, but I will literally kill 900 midgets.
Hey, every YouTuber gets negative comments.
For even the smallest amount of observational humor, but that's beside the point. Let's see how Oglok is doing. You might think Rachnik had it hard being shot to death with cannons at the start of his food quest, but Oglok had it even worse. Within the first 5 turns of him being alive, he was attacked by ogres, contracted the plague, and the hospital he was recovering in was hit by several rocket barrages from ultranationalist humans. This resulted in the immediate death of about half of his army. After recovering, I sent him south to harvest ingredients from the lizard men, which was when this happened. Yeah, that's really not good.
Aw, shit. The Tomb King's crisis happened. Yeah, and he was heading south down towards the old world, towards Tic-Tac-Toe, right?
The Black Pyramid of Nagash has awakened, spawning 9 late-game armies that are hostile to everything, and especially to Oglok, who just happens to be like 50 feet away. But that's when I realized something. To unlock the milk ingredient, we have to kill a creature with 6 limbs. These Necrosphinx have 6 limbs. That's right, boys. We're gonna milk a Necrosphinx.
Wait, that's possible?
I don't physically know how, but I do know we'll be needing some help. So I captured a settlement in the region and formed 2 new armies, led by Bladub Spidakilla and Gorfe... Okay, we're just gonna call him Gore.
Oh no! Okay, well, I'm gonna have to be kind of careful whenever I play the Greenskins. Yeah, don't read the name.
Anyway, the boys ambushed one of the skeleton armies, and after encircling it, we managed to milk the Necro...
Also, Reggie being concerned for monetization? That doesn't really sound like Reggie. But as a fellow content creator, I understand. I mean, for those of you guys who follow the channel, you guys know how hard I am on Kiwi and Survey whenever they get us bonked by YouTube.
Sphinx. That is definitely not a euphemism for group masturbation. This was technically a success, but we had to use 5,500 people to do it, so I was still pretty frightened. I opted to ignore the end of the world and instead focus on attacking the lizard men. We needed to kill their stegodon for lizard legs and their pterodactyls for leather. This would normally be difficult if we didn't have 9 stacks of black orcs, which are the objective best counter to every unit in the game. Following this victory, we now have 23 out of 25 ingredients. All that's left is tentacles and lion meat. For the tentacles, we have to sack a Norscan settlement. Vikings meet 12 catapults.
Okay.
Wow, they get along so well. For the final ingredient, we just need to defeat an army containing lions. The best I could find was this high elf doom stack, so I drove Grom into it head first. The battle was actually fairly challenging, mostly because we were outnumbered and my AI reinforcements decided to deploy their army backwards, sprint into the woods, and die. Fortunately, by this point, Grom had so many layers of protective fat that he was functionally invincible, and we managed to eke out a victory. Hundreds of thousands had to die, but we have finally completed our grocery list. All that's left now is to cook every possible dish and feed them to Grom. The only issue is, for some reason, Goblin cuisine requires large quantities of scrap metal, and we have spent most of ours on upgrading our units, so we need to do a little farming. Luckily, raiding enemy territory...
what was that video? Yeah, the scraps are a different currency for the greenskins, and they can like augment particular weapons onto certain units. I mean, augment's probably not the right word. Give them a weapon, basically.
He produces scrap, so I took 3 of my armies and sent them to raid Volkmar the Grim because he's kind of an uppity asshole.
I would lay down my life if it would rid the world of you and your kind.
Okay.
Every
I've heard some people say that Volkmar's campaign is actually kind of fun. His starting position is, well, at least it's different from the other peeps in the Empire, so maybe that was kind of the reason why. But, yeah, now that the Empire is getting an update, I don't think Volkmar actually got anything with the new Thrones of Decay stuff. I could be wrong, though, but everybody else did.
Single turn, we were stealing 125% of his city's entire GDP, resulting in the kind of economic devastation that is only ever theorized in textbooks. Anyway, I've got my scrap, and I spent the next 8 turns feeding Grom the...
457 scrap. We really raided the heck out of his territory. Oh my god.
Most bizarre food combinations I could come up with, and by the end of it, he was officially bloated and unstoppable.
Cooked all recipes. Wait, let me actually see that. Apologies for pausing a lot. Grom has conquered the culinary world, his great size and notoriety now giving him the impetus to conquer the Warden's gaudy realm and lands beyond. Cooked all recipes, leadership +8, hit points +12, hero capacity +2, and perfect vigor. That is pretty good. So I suppose now this means that you'd ideally, once you gain this, head over to the giant donut in the sea and take over the High Elves.
Officially bloated and unstoppable. It's a happy ending for everyone, unless your name is... Vlad von Karstein, Heinrich Kemmler, Daith Durthu, Findal Orion, Count Noctilus, Luther Harkon, Karl Franz, Belgrau Ironhammer, Tic-Tac-Toe, the Black Pyramid of Nagash, Marathi, Scrag the Slaughterer, Throg Eltharion, or anyone even remotely French. I want to thank this month's patrons for making these videos possible, and finally, thank you for watching.
Shout out to the patrons. Yeah, Grom's campaign looks like a lot of fun, especially with not just the combination of foods and, you know, making different buffs for your army and then building around that, but the fact that you also got to go and a little scavenger hunt to go and find them, causing different strategies that you're gonna have to use on the campaign map. I suppose in that instance the wall mechanic is really useful because you can just double up your armies whenever you're in a bad situation, or if you just really need to take somebody's head. Don't forget to support Reggie. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.